Well, welcome to the Good Talk Podcast, where we remind you of the joy of life, the love of God, and the possibilities that lie ahead. Pete and Jordyn here with episode 59.
3 biggest lies we tell ourselves.
Woohoo!
Yep. I know these lies, you've told me them, and they are so good and so true. I needed to hear it again.
Well, there are some misconceptions that are so big, so damaging, that we have to repeatedly remind ourselves that they're not true. And I would put these 3 lies in that category.
True. I believe. Hey guys. So first of all, if you're listening, thank you for listening. If you are watching on YouTube, if you could give us a subscribe, that would be awesome. And this is why I'm saying it. We just started a vlog.
Bingo.
Found it.
It's awesome. We did. We started a vlog, which is kind of random, honestly, but we're loving it.
Yeah, we talked about it last week on the podcast, and it was like, hey, we're launching it on Sunday. And in the back of my head, I'm like, are we launching it on Sunday?
Are we really?
I don't actually know.
Will we be ready?
But yeah, we did it, and it was really fun. You know, like I said last week, it's kind of for us to, I don't know, just find a unique way to remember our lives. That sounds really weird because we're probably not going to watch that when we're 80. But I do really love the intentionality it's bringing to our lives.
I'm actually going to talk about that. In the podcast today. It kind of tied into one of these 3 lies that, I think for us, there's a couple of things. Number one, we're always looking for new formats where we can share a little bit about who we are and what we feel like, God's doing in our lives, and also just be intentional about trying to find ways to inspire people with hope and love. And the vlog seemed like a pretty natural progression, similar to a podcast. We're taking some of the content that we might share in a podcast and weaving it into a larger story that's a little more personal, obviously a little more visual, because it's all designed around watching it visually on YouTube. And
I would say it's not really a teaching platform. That kind of made it sound like we're teaching at you again, but I feel like it's very much like our lives, very casually, and then Pete will sit down and kind of look at what we did and be like, what can I learn from that? And then it's like 2 minutes. It's at the end, so it's not like the whole thing. But I don't know. We're having fun with it. We have watched so many vlogs. If you're not familiar with vlogs, it's literally video blogging. So it's just kind of like life on video. And there's like travel vloggers and food vloggers and all the things. And we've been following these travel vloggers. There's 2 couples that we just love. One of them's from Nashville, Tennessee, Kara and Nate. And they I think traveled 100 countries by
crazy.
2020. Anyway, and the other one we follow has a little girl that reminds us so much of Pepper. So we have just really gone off the deep end. And are loving our vlogs. But if you're interested and you want to check it out, it is called With the Wilsons. So if you're on YouTube and you search that, or you can do youtube.com/With the Wilsons and you'll find it. If you're watching on YouTube, this is also where our podcasts are published. So you're already there if you're watching right now. But we're pumped.
It's fun. Hey, speaking of Pepper, she's learning. She's 8 months old, so she's learning all these new things, which is so much fun. And one of my favorite new things that she's learned this week is how to kiss back.
Kind of,
right? And so it's always like for me, I'm always like, "Come on, give Daddy a kiss," and she usually just stares at you, and then you kiss her, and that's it. Well, now she has started, her version of a kiss is a very large open mouth full of slobber, just kind of pressing up against you. But I love it. I love when I say, give me a kiss, and she just opens her mouth like a baby bird, just kind of leans in.
Thing.
And then today, for the first time, like an hour ago, you were holding up a little tiny mirror.
It's flashcards that help her learn words and stuff,
And she tried to kiss herself in the mirror, which was adorable.
It was so cute. I'm sure probably only we think that's really cute, but it is. It's been so cute and fun.
Yeah.
So hopefully she needs to learn to not do that. We're going to learn on closed mouth kisses.
Yeah.
But definitely adorable when you're 8 months old. So.
Yeah, it is.
Oh my gosh.
It's fun. I love all the new adventures and everything we're learning about babies. And
I know. They change so much every day.
I know. They really do.
All right.
They do. You ready to dive into this?
I am ready.
You're excited about these 3 lies?
Yeah, I think they're good. They're really practical.
I read a quote. You tell me if you think this is true or not, but I don't remember who said it, but they essentially said that the worst lies are the lies that we tell ourselves.
It's true.
I agree with that.
Because if you're telling yourself the lie, you believe it.
Yeah. You're buying full in, like I'm invested in this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, and these are the 3 lies that we tell ourselves. That's why I think this is important that we kind of get into this. You know, if the worst lies are the lies that you tell yourself, then these 3 lies definitely kind of go to the top. So let me give them to you. I don't know originally where these came from. The best I've been able to do as far as kind of backtracking the research of it, it comes from a guy named Henry Nouwen, which I love Henry Nouwen. I don't know if it's original to him or not, but I've heard these 3 things in different ways. And so the format that I've heard it in is this. The 3 lies are: I am what I have, I am what I do, and I am what you think of me.
I am what I have, I am what I do, I am what you think of me.
Yep. What's interesting to me in the coaching that I do with people, I would say people come into life coaching for a variety of reasons, but I would say at some point for everybody, as we begin to dig deep down into their story, into their life, into things they're not happy with that they like to change or adjust, one of these 3 lies almost always comes up as something that they are acting out of, whether or not they'd say they believe it or not. They're acting out of this position of I am what I have, or I am what I do, or I am what you think of me, or they're suffering from a version of all 3 of those lies, because I think at one point or another, we've all probably been tempted to believe all 3 of those different things about ourselves. Yeah. And living by any one of those 3 things, in my opinion, is going to bring about stress and anxiety and pain and disappointment and regret and a whole lot of unnecessary sadness.
Yep.
So those are the lies. But let's kind of unpack them. So that first lie is I am what I have. And I think a lot of people do fall in to that lie. And it's a message of consumerism. It's a message of materialism. It's, we think the accumulation of stuff is going to leave us feeling more secure. And we think that the more stuff we get, the more secure we're going to feel. And that an increasing, consumptions of good in the long run is going to make us happy and fulfilled. But that is never the case, is it?
No. I think so. This is truly like material possessions. Like you identify yourself with material possessions. Okay. And does that include like just wealth, like finances?
No.
Just, okay. So it's actual things.
Yeah. So it's the idea that more is better, bigger is better, newer is better. And what happens when your possessions, or what's going to happen when you lose your possessions, or the possessions lose kind of their luster, you're still left with you. So neither your latest style of clothes or your house or your car or your school or your bank account, none of these things can really define who you really are.
This is not one that I would struggle with. I struggle with the other 2, but I know, like I have a couple people in my mind that kind of came up. The people in your life that are like, kind of have to always buy something new to feel like excitement or like, it's like, okay, once they're bored, let's buy a new car. Okay, we got the new car. Let's buy the newest television. And it's kind of like a high they're addicted to. I guess that would kind of be probably part of the identity that becomes infused in them. That's so interesting.
In that moment, they feel secure. They feel successful. They feel kind of defined in that moment. And again, there's no product, there's no material possession that is going to make you feel secure in who you are.
Yeah.
So even if you feel that momentarily or temporarily, like it doesn't last long. It can't define you because it can be taken away. And when you pursue security through stuff, you're always going to end up feeling disappointed.
Yeah, that's good.
It's like this. It's kind of that. Sometimes I've referred to this as the lie of the little more. So it's like I have this, and this doesn't make me happy. But if I have more of this, then somehow I would be happy. Right? So I have this amount of money, but I'm not really happy. I don't feel secure. So maybe if I made a little more money, then I would be happy and I'd feel secure. So then you get that amount of money. And then guess what? You still don't feel truly happy and secure. So we do that with money. We do that with certain objects. It's like, if I just had I've got a 3-bedroom house. If we had 4 bedrooms, then I think we'd actually be happy with the house.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you just kind of go down. It's this lie of a little more. There's a commercial that you and I recently saw that we both thought was really good. And I can't remember the exact wording of it, but it kind of shows, I think it was a couple and they're like traveling and stuff. And they said, at the end of your life, do you think you'll miss the things that you didn't buy or the places that you never visited? Mm-hmm. And I think it was a travel commercial. It's a travel commercial.
It was Expedia. Yeah.
Yeah. And that kind of hit both of us as kind of like, oh, wow, that's pretty true. And I think you can broaden even more and it not just be the places you visit, but you could say at the end of your life, do you think you're going to miss the stuff that you didn't buy, the bigger house that you didn't buy or the car that you didn't buy, or are you going to miss the experiences that you didn't have?
The moments you didn't make, yeah.
And I think it's always going to be the experiences. Mm-hmm. You're not going to miss the stuff that you didn't buy.
Right.
And when we were talking about the vlog earlier, I think part of that's where that plays in for me.
Yeah.
It's because the vlog is kind of forcing you and I in this season to be a little more intentional about our moments. And it's not like in this season of our life, we have a lot of free time. We have multiple jobs. We have 3 boys, and then we have a brand new baby. Mm-hmm. Like, there's not a lot of time.
Yeah.
But we don't want to waste a little bit of time that we do have, and we want to be very intentional with it. And this vlog has kind of just been a little bit of a wake-up call in this season to say, get intentional about your time.
Yeah.
Get intentional about what you do with that time and where you visit and what you invested in. And
who you're with. And yeah, it's really easy in life, I think, to just get into the grind of the mundane, the routine, and that's all fine and it's necessary. But I also think this vlog, not because we're trying to entertain, but because we're like, we need, when we're thinking about capturing our lives, we're like, I don't want to sit on the couch and capture this. This is boring, So it's like it really ignited us to just get out. Y'all, we're not traveling Europe or like doing anything crazy. We just went down the road and found a waterfall on Sunday, just like 10, not far away, but we wouldn't have done that. We would have sat here and watched cartoons with Pep and it would have been fine and felt like wholesome and great. But memory wise, like I won't remember that Sunday sitting on the couch watching Coco Melon for the 900th time, but I will remember hiking with an 8-month-old to
see this waterfall. And if I had gotten home and all of our footage was completely wasted, black, distorted, whatever, that would not have been a waste of a day for me.
No. Yeah, no,
it was an investment. Yeah. So that's that first lie is I am what I have. And I think we all know that. No one's right now being like, oh, holy cow. Now, like, we just have to, from time to time, remind ourselves of this.
Yeah.
Because that lie comes back in all kinds of different forms. So every once in a while, let's just kind of, in a loving way, put our arms around each other and say, hey, just want to remind you, you're not what you have.
Yeah.
You're so much more than that. The second lie is I am what I do. And this is a big one. And I always kind of knew that I struggled a little bit with this. It really came front and center for me when I resigned from what I thought and everybody else thought was a dream job. And all of a sudden, for the first time in my life, I'm asking, what am I going to do? Like, my identity was so wrapped around that job.
It was who you were. And it's who everyone else saw you as well. Yeah. Like, you were Pete Wilson, but you were the role that you played.
Yep.
To thousands of people. And so when other people have that expectation of you too, that's especially hard to not have that view of yourself.
It becomes toxic real quick. So I think, again, we have to remind ourselves you're not what you do, because what you do can always be taken away or can always be lost. At the same time, though, I will say this. Who you are is the source of all you do. So you are not what you do, but who you are is the source of all you do. And another way you could say this is when what we do becomes an expression of who we are, not an effort to secure who we are, we find a new level of freedom and confidence. Again, you're doing what you do as a natural expression of who you are, not as an effort to secure who you are. When you do that, it seems like a subtle twist, but it changes everything about the way you experience your work, and it also changes the way people experience your work and what you do and what you bring to this world.
It's interesting because, I can think back to a job that I absolutely loved and I felt the most alive. It wasn't because of the job and my tasks. It was because I felt like who I am was most expressed in that role at the time. And I remember feeling heartbroken after that and being like, I'm never going to feel like that again because I associated it to that specific role. But it's really interesting to think of it that way. If you say that phrase again.
When what we do becomes an expression of who we are,
Yes.
not an effort to secure who we are, we find a new level of freedom.
Right. So like if I found another role that allowed me to just simply express who I am or my gifts and all of that, it's not the role. It's am I able to express my truest self in this role?
That
makes so much sense.
That's right. And I mean, when you find that, it kind of changes everything. But we have to remind ourselves, I'm not what I do. And my experience just in life, my experience as a pastor, my experience as a life coach tells me that the more successful you are, the more tempting it is to begin to define yourself by what you do.
Because you're finding success and people are applauding you for that success. And it's easy to say you're applauding me, like for being this, for doing this. It's so easy to do.
It's very difficult to separate those two.
Yeah.
In my experience. But I think it's really important. And I just encourage you, because my guess is there is a lot of you listening to this right now. People that listen to podcasts tend to be people who are successful and they're working hard and they're trying to grow personally and professionally, which also means you're probably more likely to be tempted to define who you are based on your personal growth and based on what you do. So I just encourage you to really slow down enough to pay attention to that. Are you doing what you do as just a natural overflow of who you are, or are you doing what you do to try to secure who you think you are? Big difference between those two.
Yeah. I think I struggled with this one and the third one. I didn't realize how much I struggled with this one until I became a mom. And I resigned from I worked at an agency here in Nashville, and I resigned from that. I never felt like I identified myself as like working there specifically, but more just working, and, really helping provide and helping, do all of that. And so when I stepped down from that job and now I'm working on all of our stuff, with our own businesses, which is fine, but there is something mentally that I struggled with to say, okay, you're not what you do. You're not what you do. You're not what you do. Because I felt like all of a sudden I was not helpful in life.
Yeah.
I was not contributing. I was not whatever that is. And even if all I did was take care of Pepper, then I'm still contributing at the highest level, but it really, I struggled with that of being okay with not having like a role listed next to my LinkedIn name, and that I had a hard time with that. And I still probably do struggle with that subconsciously sometimes. Even though I am working on our business stuff, it doesn't feel quite the same when we're bringing in, whatever income to our own business versus I'm not getting a check from somebody else. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I struggle with that. But the third one is where I probably struggle the most.
Yeah. Well, what you just shared, I think, is really important. And I think we should sometime have a panel of a couple of different women, someone who's working full-time out of the house, someone who's a full-time mom, someone who is a hybrid version like you do, because my experience is that women really do struggle with that. And society has so many opinions that I think there's women who work outside of the home who are crushing it in corporate America or whatever, but they feel a tremendous amount of guilt because they feel like maybe they're not as present as a mom as they should be. Then there's the stay-at-home mom who's loving being a great mom and stay-at-home mom, and that's what they feel like is their calling. But then they feel a little bit of what you just shared of like, I also feel like I should be like contributing to the bottom line. And there's just a lot of, I understand why there could be a lot of pressures and a lot of different things going on there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll talk more about that. All right, number 3, third lie is I am what you think of me. It's a big one. You struggle with this one?
Yes, and so do you.
You're not supposed to call me out on the podcast.
You went ahead. We both do. We're the same in this way.
Yeah. I will say this. For most of my life, my need to be liked overshadowed all my other needs.
Yeah.
Like I viewed that as that's like the most, I have to have that need met. And I was always trying to manipulate perception, adapting myself to, receive validation from other people. And it was draining. and counterproductive.
Yep.
But it's where I was, and probably the biggest growth I've experienced in my personal life over the past 5 or 6 years is starting to become more comfortable with not being liked by everybody.
Yeah, it to me, that is like the stem of what a lot of if you identify yourself as a perfectionist, like I always have, we struggle with this. And I think it was Brene Brown. I don't want to misquote her, but it was something to the effect of perfectionism essentially sounds really like valiant and like you're working hard, but really it is just a reflection of fear because you're fearing, like, if you let someone down, you're fearing if you fail yourself, you're fearing if you try something and don't succeed, then what? So that was like really interesting to me to think of it in that way. Is I just had tremendous fear of failure and what others would think of me because somehow that identified me. Anyway.
Yeah, I think there's so many people who struggle with this. I kind of wrote down a couple reality checks for myself and you, and for anybody who struggles with this. And reality check number 1 is you have to just realize some people aren't going to like you.
Yep.
Reality check number 2 is that's okay.
Yep.
Right? Life isn't fair. And even though you may be an absolutely fantastic human being, there are some people who are just going to find a reason to dislike you no matter what you do or how fabulous you are.
Yeah.
And you just have to be okay with that.
And I think we talked about this the other week. I saw a quote and it essentially said, if you're doing anything with your life, there will be people who don't like you.
For sure.
And once I thought of it in that way of like, okay, if you start a podcast, if you have a vlog, if you're posting something on Instagram that has your personality or opinion on it, like whatever, like if you have any like heart in the world to just kind of speak up or be yourself, there's going to be someone who wishes that they could do that. And so they're going to hate on you for it.
Yep.
So I kind of found a lot of freedom in that thought of like, okay, I do want to live a life where I'm, doing things maybe a little above and beyond for my own self, like, whatever that may be. My comfort zone would not be to create a vlog. My comfort zone would not be to always stand up for, something that I believe in, right? It would be just, I'm going to sit here and believe in it for myself, and I'm going to, whatever. I don't want someone to make fun of me. I don't want to say whatever. So all that to say, like, I think it's very empowering to think, yes, there may be people pointing their fingers, but it's because you're doing something.
Yeah. So some people aren't going to like you. That's okay. Which I should also point out that you don't like everybody.
True.
Right?
True.
So it's okay. Like, you don't like everybody. That's okay. And everybody's not going to like you. Like, that's just, right?
So that's an even trade-off there.
So 1, some people aren't going to like you. 2, that's okay. 3, some people's overwhelming need to be liked is the very thing that makes them hard to like. Mm-hmm. Which is some crazy irony right there, but It's very true. And then reality check number 4 is that for many people, their need to be liked has led them to a very vanilla, unfulfilled life. Because when you want to be liked, essentially what you're saying, like, this is true, I think, of most populations of people around the world. There's a herd mentality. So no matter where I've visited in the world, that particular group of people kind of dress the same, do a lot of similar things, think a lot of similar ways. Their religion is pretty much mapped out the same way. And so there's this idea, this herd mentality, that there's safety in doing and thinking like everyone else. This idea that the larger the group of people or the larger the herd, the safer you are. Mm-hmm. And so there's this tendency for us to want to be in with the herd, again, thinking and doing and looking like everyone else. When you break away from the herd, what happens is that threatens the herd. So the herd is going to do what the herd always does, which is to criticize that which is different until that which is different moves back in with the herd. So I say that to say this: it takes a tremendous amount of courage to live a life where you realize that you are a lot more than being liked by everybody else. It takes a tremendous amount of courage to stand up for what you believe in. It takes a tremendous amount of courage to try a new idea, to introduce a new thought, to offer a different perspective. Because every time you're doing any one of those things, the courage is you're breaking off from the herd, and you don't really know exactly how that herd is going to react. Mm-hmm. But if you live your life in such a way that you believe you are other people's opinion of you, it will force you to live, as you described it a second ago, Jordyn, this life where you just sit on the couch. But it's a life that is very vanilla. It's a life where you're always in with the group think. You don't break away from that. You don't try new things. You don't innovate. You don't think outside the box. And man, as much as I've lived most of my life wanting to be liked by people, when I made that connection, I just thought to myself, nah, that trade-off's not worth it to me. I'm not okay living this vanilla, just life like everybody else in order to be liked by everybody else.
Right. In order to be liked by everybody else. Absolutely. It's not saying that we think everybody else's lives suck and we don't want to live life like them. It's more just like, are you being true to yourself? Are you living a life that's true to you? Are you living a life that gets you accepted and maybe pleases your, husband, wife, maybe pleases your dad? Maybe, like, I have friends who are like, well, I didn't do what my dad, wanted me to do. So now here I am, and I'm a doctor because he was a doctor and I don't want to be a doctor, things like that, where it's just like, are you living to your true potential, but also like living true to yourself? I don't know. I just think it's really, we figured that out late in the game. I think, because I lived with so much desire to be liked. And now I can honestly say, that if we ever had someone who was like anti us, we have so much freedom in it, and being like, okay, like, clearly we're saying something or doing something that maybe it's helping someone else, because it's causing ripples somewhere. And sometimes those ripples rub people the wrong way, and that's okay. And I think, again, as long as you're being true to yourself, that's the biggest, like, core foundational thing. We're not just causing ripples to cause them. But I think if you can just break out of that suffocating thing that's just like, I'm going to live to be liked. And in this world of social media, hello, it is so easy to do that. But you know
what? You know what it did for me too. It also freed me up, not just from myself, but from the people around me. In other words, for a long time, when you define yourself, when you actually start to begin that I am what you think of me, that forces you to try to get the people around you to think a certain way about you. And then when they don't, you get really upset at them. See, what I've realized is whatever your opinion is of me, it's fine. That is your opinion of me. You're welcome to have that opinion. I don't need to waste any of my energy
changing it,
trying to change the way that you see me. That's okay. If I'm not your cup of tea, that's
all
fine.
Good. Yeah.
It's all good. And so there's this, I'm big on validating the statements. There's this statement that I don't read it every day, but from time to time I kind of go back to this during my morning practices. And I wrote this several years ago, but it just says, I will endeavor to be the best Pete Wilson that I can be. And if my best still generates critics and people who find a reason to dislike me, which it will, that's okay. The only person I can change is me, so I'll focus on improving, educating, and develop myself rather than trying to create a fan club and chase people down trying to convince them to like me.
It's good. I like that.
And
I've never heard that one.
I have to just, actually you have heard it before because I've read it on this podcast before.
Right, yep.
I'm glad it changed your life so much.
Totally heard
You don't hear it very often because I just read that kind of in my own practices. But that's important for me. Every once in a while I just have to remind myself because it's so easy to slip into this particular lie.
Mm-hmm. Man, that one's good. I think too, like, certain people can identify maybe more with one of those, but sure. I feel like everybody somewhere, somehow kind of struggled with that last one or did. And maybe you did and then grew from it. I think it's all, at some point in your life, it's like just part of existence. I feel like you have to kind of experience that, but that was good. All right. So it's number one is I am what
I have. I am what I do. I am what you think of me. So I would reverse that right here at the end of this and say to each one of you listening to this, you are not what you have. You are not what you do. and you are not what other people think of you. In fact, you are enough right now, just the way you are, no matter what you have, no matter what you do, and no matter what other people think of you. You are enough, and you're exactly where you need to be right now in your life.
That's good. Yay, I feel like we could end it right there.
We can. Do you want to?
It's okay. Thank you. That was super helpful. If you guys like that, feel free to share it. We have people all the time, so sweet, putting on your Instagram stories, sharing it on Facebook, all the stuff that's really awesome and helpful and hopefully encouraging to other people. And like we talked about earlier, if you're interested in the vlog, we put one out last week about taking Pepper to the zoo. That was super fun.
That was fun.
And then this Sunday, we have one coming out that is about Gage, your middle son, asking a girl to prom.
Oh, that's a good one.
We had baby ducks and all the things. And then we went to Cheekwood and saw over 250,000 tulips. So if you're into that, that comes out on Sunday. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and thank you guys for listening. We really are so honored by it. We think about, some of you just gave up your most important resource, time. You spent 30 minutes listening to this, and we take that serious and want to invest in you in any way we possibly can. And we're grateful that you would give us that gift of time and allow us to share life with you. And we always hope that it's encouraging and inspiring for you, and that it does, exactly like we say every week, remind you of the joy of life and remind you of the love of God and remind you of the possibilities that lie ahead, no matter where you might find yourself today.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yep. And that was another good talk. It's got to be confusing wearing the headband and the...
Well, this was behind it.
Oh.
You have stuff on top of your head.
Your mom does.